Well, howdy there, Internet people. It's Dee again, and welcome to the Interstate with Dee. Today is Saturday, September 13th, 2025. Welcome back to our trip on the Interstate. What we do here is present news from the state level that will end up having national importance later, or news that made it into the national news cycle but was overshadowed. Then we go over some questions from y'all. On this date, September 13th in 1968, Well Jinkies Scooby-Doo first aired. Today is Defy Superstition Day. Okay, and on to the news. In Alabama, threats were issued against historically black colleges and universities in the aftermath of the attack on Charlie Kirk. The Alaska legislature is pursuing a lawsuit against the governor of the state for creating a Department of Agriculture via executive order. I'm not up to date on the state constitution of Alaska enough to have an opinion, but I would ask, how on earth does the state not have a Department of Agriculture in 2025? In Arkansas, farmers continue to plead for help from the federal government due to low crop prices, bad weather, and tariffs. California lawmakers passed a ban on masks for law enforcement in the state, a move seen as directly linked to federal law enforcement wearing masks. Elsewhere in the state, the governor said Trump has a, quote, unhinged California obsession. In Colorado, a school was attacked, leaving 2 wounded. Law enforcement is saying the attacker was, quote, radicalized by some extremist network. The cops said more details about that would come later. The raid at a Hyundai plant in Georgia has caused the president of South Korea to say the event could have a, quote, considerable impact on future investments in Georgia and the U.S. in general. The University of Kentucky has reportedly fired a tenured professor over alleged falsified drug test results for horses. For those who may not know, horse racing requires testing of animals to ensure both a fair competition and the welfare of the horse. Anything that calls the accuracy of those tests into question is a huge deal. Elsewhere in the state, a nurse saved a drunk raccoon from a dumpster with CPR. Just Google it for the video. Michigan's lieutenant governor saw his home threatened by political violence. In Minnesota, 3 months after longtime leader Melissa Hortman was killed in a politically motivated attack, Minnesota House Democrats selected State Rep. Zach Stevenson as their new leader. In related news, the wife of the man who allegedly killed Hortman has filed for divorce. Elsewhere in Minnesota, Tim Walz indicated he would run for governor again. In Mississippi, Priscilla Williams Teal has announced her candidacy for U.S. Senate. She is the cousin of Emmett Till. If you aren't familiar with the story of Emmett Till, it's definitely worth looking up. Missouri is moving forward with its attempt to gerrymander the state over protests from the people they're supposed to represent. In New Mexico, a school had to be evacuated after Democratic Party leaders were targeted with bomb threats. North Carolina saw Trump approve disaster funding from flooding in July. Oklahoma saw a wave of resignations of high-ranking state officials. The Secretary of State, Deputy Secretary of State, Director of the Office of Management and Enterprise Services, as well as Executive Director of Economic Development, Growth, and Expansion. Right now, there is no known reason for the resignations. In Oregon, 3 Democratic senators were targeted with bomb threats. South Carolina saw the Supreme Court deny its request to enforce its trans bathroom bill. In Utah, conservative commentator Charlie Kirk was shot and killed, sparking a nationwide discussion about political violence. A wave of threats against universities followed in the days afterward. Utah's governor issued a warning saying that Chinese and Russian bots were spreading disinformation and trying to cause more violence. In Washington state, the police arrested a 13-year-old who is being reported to have ideations about attacking a school. More than 20 firearms were seized from the home. In Wisconsin, Trump has finally approved the emergency funding for last month's flood. And here's your weird state fact for this week. The monument in Mississippi for Emmett Till is bulletproof, because it had to be. It was constantly shot at and defaced. Okay, so moving on to the question and answer portion of the show. Question number 1. Did Chicago really beat Trump when it comes to a National Guard deployment to there? Well, so far it looks like it. But there's more to come, I'm sure. Trump said he would look for taking federal troops to a place that wants them. Question number 2. Here in California, we just had a school-age child die from measles long after they were infected as an infant. I'm not sure I understood how this can happen. Well, one way is called SSPE, and I Googled, and that's what it was in this case. It's a rare brain disorder that can arise as a complication from measles. That can happen at any age of infection. But the rates of the disorder are much, much higher if the infection occurred as an infant. Somebody can become infected as an infant, too young to be vaccinated, and then years later it can pop up as a fatal complication. Okay, that looks like it. We'll see you next week for another trip. Y'all have a good day.